All right, welcome back, folks. So at this point, I figured it would be helpful for those of you who aren't familiar with my story or you haven't watched a ton of my content. You might be a little bit newer to my selling style and just my teaching style as a whole. So I figured I'd take you a quick trip down memory lane and really share with you all the story of how I have put together this set of experiences, data points, and frameworks that I'm going to share with you here in the coming modules. So here's a quick story of my history selling and my relationship with sales as well. Now, I would say, like any good salesperson, the first prospects that I had, as heartless as this really sounds, were my parents. As a child, I learned influence and I learned it well. And in fact, the person that I learned it from was none other than my mother. She taught me how to tell stories, tell jokes, be funny, be informative, how to be a little bit manipulative if we're totally honest, and really just how to get what I want. Whether it was from my teachers, from my father, from my friends, or eventually from relationship partners and people I was interested in. Now, this is typically where some of you might have a squirmy, wormy feeling in your gut because you don't want to face the fact that all persuasion in sales is manipulation. And to be Uncle Ben, with great power comes great responsibility, doesn't it? So with the awareness and the knowledge that you have and that I'm going to share with you, I want to encourage you to use it for good. To genuinely use these frameworks in the favor of the prospect if it's going to actually improve the quality of their life. Because that is a lesson that I, like many of you, learned the hard way as a teenager. That when you try to manipulate and bend people to your will, you don't always get your way. And when people find out that you have ill intentions, it can really damage relationships. And so the first people that I sold were my parents to buy me the thing, do the thing, let me do the thing, whatever it was. And I was a pretty persuasive and influential child and certainly got more powerful as I was a teenager. After a stint of figuring out who I was, right out of high school, which, by the way, I was going to, from basically 8 to 18, the whole goal was be a professional football player. Make it big and be famous and make millions of dollars, and you just won't have to really do anything. And clearly, I was, and still am in many ways, kind of a lazy fuck. And I didn't really want to do anything, so I wanted to do what I thought was fun at the time and get paid handsomely for it. And I think that logic still remains in the entrepreneur in me and the salesperson in me, and it probably exists in you too, right? There is a reality in which you want to live where you do very little and get very much. And I want to show you how to create that. So going from the professional football player fantasy to the reality that is me dropping out of college and not knowing what the hell I want to do with my life, I figured, hey, while I stopped enjoying football, the game, the part that I always loved was doing the work physically. Personal training was something that I had exposure to at the age of 13. I had a personal trainer. I was gifted and privileged enough to, my parents were able to afford that. And I worked with a professional, and she was a woman, and she was very good at what she did. And she taught me a lot about how to lift right, eat right, move my body, take care of my body. And so I started to focus on that at the age of 14, 15, 16 into me being, a seemingly adult, right? And so I got into personal training, and I worked at some of the big gyms, and I tried to do it on my own, and I even owned my gym for a period of time. And personal training, unbeknownst to me, is a very sales-heavy job / career. I actually wasn't aware of that at all. But my first job, Gold's Gym, it's a sales job, more or less, right? Yeah, you got to train clients and all that kind of stuff, but everything lives or dies or starts at selling those packages. So I found this natural gift and this innate ability to be influential and very convincing and a little bit intimidating, I think, in some cases, to my favor. And I very quickly had the highest closing percentage of all the personal trainers in the gym, despite the fact that they had been there for many years. Who was this 18-year-old kid, came out of nowhere, and I started closing. I started closing at about 70% for several months. And people were how are you doing this? What the hell is going on? How do you know how to do this? And it was just full intuitive instinct and passion. I was very convincing. I knew my shit, and I wanted people to get better because I had just gone through the process of being cheated on in a long-term relationship, and going from basically being kind of a fat, overweight, lazy football player to working my ass off and doing things in the gym that would make people sick. And that was me fighting my own demons. And so doing that and being very convicted about what I wanted to do in this world, it came through and people wanted to work with me. After I got in and out of personal training a couple times, I decided, because at the time I was a spoiled kid driving a BMW, every time I went to take my car into service, I was like, I really like it here. I would love to sell these cars. I like the cars. I like talking about them. I like being in them. And I want to make enough money to where I can have them, and the one that I want, right? And so I applied for a job to sell BMWs. And I got that job at the age of 19. With no, again, knowledge of the sales process and car sales. And, the manager kind of took me under his wing. And I absolutely sucked. Just flat out sucked ass at selling cars the first stint that the first shot that I took at it. And luckily enough, I years later circled back around and got back into the car industry, actually in between some high ticket sales experience when I first moved to Colorado, and I was damn good at it. Learning a sales process and learning a lot of the frameworks that I'm going to share with you in this course helped me excel in car sales. It was easy. It was a walk in the park. The cars sold themselves. Getting to payment and presenting numbers was just a cakewalk for me. And the fact that I had discovery and consultative sales frameworks under my tool belt made me a weapon in the showroom. I was funny, I was engaging, and let's be honest, if I was selling to a woman, I'm fairly good looking and I was flirty too. And this combination, paired up with the ability to ask very good situational and information gathering questions, allowed me to crush car sales for about 6 months before I got bored. And I will tell you, there were many times where before I left to go pull the car around, to go on a test drive, I knew that the car was sold, what payment I could get the car to, and what products I was going to sell to them on the back end, extended service, warranty, insurance, all the above. There were several times through my short stint in car sales the second time around where I knew exactly that car was already sold before we even got in the car because my discovery was that good. So in between selling cars and being in the fitness industry, I was doing a lot of random shit like modeling for fitness companies and apparel companies. I was managing a nutrition store and going into work as absolutely high as I possibly can because no one would come in until 2 p.m. and I would just sit and vibe out and watch YouTube videos and just dream about one day doing something with my life. I worked retail, I worked service industry, I worked at a bar, I worked in a kitchen, and I basically did anything to avoid real purpose in life. And through being fed up with myself, being in a relationship that wasn't serving me, and just realizing that I was making about half of the money, like monthly, I was making about half of what I had been 2, 3, 4 years prior. I just realized, asked myself, what the fuck am I doing? And that's when I remembered that I need to get back into sales. And so I started looking online every single day. I was working at a bar and I was working retail. Every single day, I was in job boards. I would wake up, I would look at job boards, I would comb the algorithm, they would send my emails, I would look at them, I would take some of the calls, I would apply to some of them. And finally, one man, his name was Ben, reached out to me and we got on a call, got on an interview. And I remember him, interviewing me, asking me my background, this and that. And he's like, well, I've got this client. They're kind of in the fitness industry. How many calls can you take a day? And I was like, Ben, how much money can I make here? And he's like, you can make about $1,000 per sale. I was like, I'll make as many calls as I need to. I was like, I'll fucking take all the calls. I'll work as much as you need me to. And because I saw that earning opportunity, if I can make $1,000 per sale every time. From what I knew about car sales, that was a pretty good sale. If you made $1,000 a car, you did your job, you held gross, you sold product, whatever. And I was like, wow, if I was making $1,000 a car sale, like I would have still been in car sales, but I wasn't. I was working at a fucking bar. I was working in a kitchen. I was cleaning bathrooms. I was doing dishes all day. And I was like, I'll do whatever I need to do. And I, at a moment's notice, hastily and selfishly and immaturely, quit that job and immediately started taking calls for this high ticket offer. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't really know what I was selling. I didn't understand it. I was very new to this world. It's Facebook advertising, showing for personal trainers how to move from working in the gym to going online. It was something that I wanted to do. And so I believed in the product. I wanted to do it myself. I had some knowledge, and talking to personal trainers, I was like, I can do this all day long. So I ate shit for about a month and a half and didn't make any money. And then I made my first high ticket sale and I made $700. And I'll never forget that person. I'll never forget that woman that I sold. I'll never forget that moment where it was a 4-minute mile moment for me. I was like, this is possible. 1 hour, I think an hour and a half, one call close, $700, bet, game on. And for the next 6 months, I made good money, made bad money, business shut down, hopped from business to business, and just basically floated around until those same guys from some small town in Arkansas who had this kind of, sales management structure, and they were running some offers and they would find salespeople. And, it's really the first foray into what I've been doing for the past 3 years. And I saw what they were doing and I was very interested. I was like, if I just latch on to these guys, and I was listening to Grant Cardone at that point, and I was like, network is net worth. And I stayed connected with those guys, and they got me a job for one of Tony Robbins' companies. It was their biggest client, and it was Tony Robbins' life coach certification. And what I had gone through spiritually and personally throughout that 6 to 8 months of working from home, I started reading and researching. I started watching documentaries and YouTube channels. I started meditating every day. I started taking my health really seriously. I transitioned to plant-based and vegan lifestyle. My life completely changed because I had my time back and I was doing something that I felt mattered in the world. I saw the impact that I had on my clients when I had a conversation with them, took money from them, and watched them level the fuck up. And so I made the commitment to myself that I would level up too. Now, there's a lot of sidesteps and backsliding and stagnating in other areas of my life while I'm going through this, but professionally, intellectually, spiritually, I took a quantum leap in the year of 2016. And I started working with one of Tony Robbins' companies, and I started learning about human need psychology, and I started learning about high-ticket coaching and life coaching. I watched all the training. I attended coaching calls. I took thousands upon thousands of sales calls. The type of volume that we did at that offer was something I've never seen before. I would manage anywhere from 20 to 50 leads per day. Per day, we would have people emailing us, calling a number. My phone rang off the hook for months on end. I would go to the bathroom and have 11 missed calls. I would go to the gym and have 35 voicemails to get back to. It was nuts. And I loved every fucking second of it. It was addicting. Because there's so much money on the table. We didn't get paid that much for sale, by the way. It's like $350 for a paid in full. And I knew that it was a volume game. There were times where I would sell 20, 30 units in a week. And I would take calls at 11 p.m. I would answer my phone. Hello, this is Cody with Robbins Madonnas. How can I help you today? There were scheduled calls, outbound dials to make, people who would come into a spreadsheet, name, email, phone number, sometimes just name and email, phone rings off the hook. Whatever it took, I did it. And I worked with that company for on and off a little bit for about 2 years. And I did the car sales thing in between a stint of working with them because the lead flow kind of went down for a little bit. They changed over executive structure. And no, I never met or talked to Tony Robbins. He was very disconnected from the company. And that is where I found my love for helping people break through, which is no surprise. And that's where I got a lot of frameworks that I share with you today and that I carry into my profession. So getting into that, I then got into this more evolved world, this more modern, younger side of the market with high ticket coaching, consulting, and marketing agencies. And that is where I transitioned from sales rep to sales coach. I started reviewing calls. And because I was as introspective as I was, because throughout my journey I became obsessed with human psychology and what makes us tick and what encourages, invites, challenges people from taking action in their life, I was obsessed with learning about that. And psychology became this itch that I could never scratch, this thing that I could never satisfy, this thing that I could never know enough about. And I fell in love with it. And so I was very good at reviewing calls because I heard things that other people did not. And I had to learn how to give feedback. That was probably the most challenging thing and the skill that I had not yet learned. And so through trial and error and managing about 5 or 6 sales teams, reviewing all their calls, listening to a lot of calls every day, a lot. I mean, I'm listening to calls for 7-8 hours a day, just back to back to back to back to back. Different offers, different price points, different sales styles, you name it. And it was there when I really started to master sales. And whilst I remember this is December, January 2017 into 2018. I had moved to Colorado. I had been selling for Tony Robbins Madonnas for about 1.5 years, 2 years. I had stopped for the spring summertime, and sold cars and crushed it. And then I'd come back. And after reviewing calls, giving feedback, co-managing a couple of teams with an individual in a cohort that I was working with at the time. And it just so happened that all these opportunities started to merge. I was reviewing calls and managing teams, and leading some coaching calls. I took sales calls for our client at the time as a relationship offer, which ended up being another client of mine years later, and just someone who I really learned a lot from in the industry. I'm very grateful for her. All the tough spots and the bumps in the road, and as well as the things that I learned about myself as a man, selling to women on a relationship offer. And no one had ever closed before. I was the first person that was not the business owner to close a deal on this offer. And it's very odd that it was, women selling to C-suite executive level women on a relationship offer. So here I was, this young 24, 25, I think it was 25-year-old guy. 25-year-old guy who had never been married, was in a relationship that he was not happy with, selling to these women to level up their relationship. That happened. I was still reviewing calls and managing teams. Then I also, at the same time, took a men's health offer. The people who I had originally worked with in the industry came to me and he was like, Cody, I've got the perfect offer for you. And I was like, you definitely do. And it was selling to executive level men or business owners. So here I was in touch with this divine feminine, these spiritual women who are working in this corporate masculine environment who want to find their partner. And on the other end of my day and week, selling to these very, sort of feminine men who want to embody the way they feel on the inside and the way that they look on the outside. They want to merge those things. These sort of, flabby, soft guys working in these environments who want to feel very powerful. And, there I was, lifting what I was lifting and looking the way that I was looking. And I was able to close several women on the offer. I didn't close that many because I didn't take calls for more than like a month and a half. And I was just like, I can't do this anymore. It was overwhelming, to be honest. I was managing teams and reviewing calls. I was taking calls on an offer. And then I took a second offer and I was like, it's too much. And selling to the guys was easier. It was the path of least resistance for me. So I'd sold about 4 or 5 women on the relationship offer in about a month, my first month taking calls. And she was blown away. She was like, I haven't done more than 3 or 4 enrollments. We've done 6, whatever we did, 6 or 7 that month. And cause she'd taken some calls and, she was over the moon. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. So I pulled back from that. And it was around this time of the year, January, In the month of January and February, I closed at 50% steadily on the men's health offer. Boom, 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 boom. Every day I was like, who the fuck is giving me money today? I just showed up and I was an absolute just shark on the phone. And going from selling to life coaches, selling to marketers, reviewing calls, taking calls on a women's relationship offer, taking calls on a men's health offer, and knowing that I could sell anything to anyone, no matter if it was business, health, love, you fucking name it. That's what broke me through. That's when I decided that helping people learn how to have powerful conversations is my gift. It's my gift. It's my purpose. It's what I want to do. I don't care how I do it, but I'm going to do it. And so then I stayed in the marketplace. I continued to manage teams. I worked with a few different people. Still hadn't found the partnership that I was looking for. And that's when I got back in touch with some people who I had already known of. And that's when I think I really changed. I went from being a sort of wheeling dealing salesperson to really having structure, to understanding what it's like to run a real business. And so I'm very grateful for my time at Coaching Sales and what we did, going from around 30K per month to 300K per month, and then whatever they're doing now, I don't really care. But managing 30, 40 teams at one time is something that A, I don't wish on anyone, and B, I'm so grateful for that I got to do it. I'm so grateful for that I got the lashes, that I got the scars, because those lessons and the people that I've worked with and the network that I have now is invaluable. And so I'm very grateful. And such has led me to now running my own consultancy, building a team of consultants, and helping those of you who want to just get better on the phones. So that's really the professional journey. And I know that was a long story, but it needed to be told. So that gives you some background and some context on who I am and where this information comes from. And I promise you, none of the following modules are as loose and meandering as this video was. So from here, what we're going to do, we are going to dive straight into the consultative sales process, from connecting to closing and then beyond. And so if you're a setter, pay attention. If you're a closer, pay attention. Take notes. Learn these lessons now, because these communication tools can help you in your career, commission checks, in your relationships, longevity of them, the quality of them, the depth of them, and in the relationship with you and yourself as well. So I'm excited to help you get what you want in life, because beg, borrow, or steal, I figured out how to get mine. So I'm excited to go on this journey with you. Hopefully it's informative and fun. I'm looking forward to you making a lot more money and having very meaningful conversations. So let's get into it, shall we? Without further ado, here what we have next: non-fungible frameworks. We're going to start with rapport and connecting and starting the calls, and we'll get rolling from there. So I'll see you on the next video. Let's get after it, shall we?